Well, good evening, everyone. As you heard, we are recording this so that folks can watch it later, and it will be posted up on our website later this evening, so you can pass it around if folks weren't able to join us tonight. I'm Mike Mercier. I have the privilege of serving as race director for the 45th running of the Head of the Lake Regatta. On behalf of the Lake Washington Rowing Club, our members, families, and friends, along with our longtime partners at the University of Washington and the many other local rowing organizations that make this event possible, thank you very much for joining us tonight. Next slide, Gene. Each year, this regatta depends on an extraordinary network of support. More than 200 volunteers, officials, and staff contribute thousands of hours to make this event happen. From dock masters and launch drivers to timing crews, safety personnel, and course officials. Their experience and commitment are what allow us to host an event of this size and quality every year. Before moving on, I do want to take a moment to remember Bill Bowden, our longtime dock master at Conabear. His presence and care for this regatta will be missed, but his steady influence continues to shape how we run the event today. We're also deeply appreciative of our sponsors, partners, and vendors whose ongoing support sustains this regatta year after year. In particular, we want to recognize our longtime sponsors, Pocock Racing Shells, who got their start right here at the University of Washington, and Northwest Yacht Brokers for their continued support of the Head of the Lake. Next slide, Gene. On race day, let's go one more. I want to do the, yep, there we go. On race day, we want to make sure you stop by the Conabear Shell House area, and there you'll find the Head of the Lake merchandise inside the boathouse upstairs. And across the street in lot E7, our vendor, Sip with Goldie, will be serving coffee and snacks throughout the morning. It's a great spot to warm up, meet fellow competitors, and take home some official Head of the Lake gear. You can go to that next slide, Gene. Let's go to the one with the, yeah, there we go. So looking ahead to Sunday, this year marks a special milestone for us. It's the 45th running of the Head of the Lake. And whether you are a local crew training here regularly, a visiting team from the region, or joining us for the first time, you're in for one of the most distinctive courses in rowing. The race takes you through Seattle's working waterways, around the famed Pocock Turn, and into Mott Lake Cut, where spectators line both sides of the canal to cheer you through and give you a motivational push to power you around the big turn. Get ready to power up, starboards, before you hit that straightaway to the finish with Husky Stadium in view. It's a demanding course, but it's also one of the most scenic and memorable. We're very glad you chose to close out your season with us and wish you a safe and successful race. But there are a few important reminders I want to cover before this Sunday. First and foremost, Pacific Daylight Time ends at 2 a.m. on Sunday morning, so make sure you set your clocks back 1 hour. And with over 2,000 competitors and nearly 500 entries launching from multiple sites, timing and preparation are critical. Please double check your start times, alarms, and travel plans to ensure you and your crews are on time. But before race day, make sure that you have your U.S. rowing waiver, membership, and safe sport attestations that are all current. These are required for every athlete competing. And please review the race booklet and course map at headofthelake.org. Really study the videos and know the rules, and make sure coxswains are familiar with the turns. We often have a little bit of follow the leader going on, and we want to make sure that everybody is mindful of their own boat and where the course should be. Don't trust that the person in front of you is going the right way. And please, please, please encourage your athletes to pack warm gear. The Pacific Northwest weather can change quickly. Right now it's looking very, very nice, but that can change. And please make sure that your crews are dressed appropriately. Go to the next slide. Race packets can be picked up at one of two times. On Saturday, you could pick those up at the Lake Washington Rowing Club from 3 to 6 p.m. And then on Sunday morning, the day of the race, you can pick those up at Conabear from 6 to 8 a.m. Every rower in the lineup must have an active U.S. rowing waiver, membership, and for athletes 18 and over, they must also have that safe sport attestation. Packets won't be released even if one person in the boat is not compliant. So please get that done before you arrive at the regatta. On race day, stay connected through the Head of the Lake WhatsApp group. I would encourage you while I'm talking to either scan this QR code or afterward when the presentation is available online, click on the link, or of course you can scan the code. That will take you to the channel that we'll be posting for real-time race updates. That's where we'll post things like general announcements regarding the regatta, any operational changes, if we have to go to a short course for some reason, if there are launch delays or warm-up area closures, and if needed, weather or schedule adjustments. So please do share that link with your crews so they can monitor updates throughout the morning. If you have any questions tonight while we're going through this presentation, please, I would encourage you to put those into the chat. We'll be monitoring those, and then we'll respond to your questions accordingly. So I want to thank you again for taking the time to join us tonight and for helping make the Head of the Lake the signature regatta it continues to be after 45 years. And with that, I'd like to turn things over to our chief referee, Dee McComb, who'll walk through the on-water procedures and race day details. Dee, take it away.
Thank you. I too want to echo Mike's thoughts and to welcome everybody, especially those who have taken the time to look at the CNC meeting and to go over it. If there are any questions as we go along, if you'd put them in the chat, it will be monitored so that we can answer them, so long as it applies specifically to the regatta. This year, I've got 14 other licensed U.S. rowing referees who are going to be able to handle the positions in the various launches and so on throughout the course in order to be able to keep everybody safe and to administer the rules, which we're going to go over, especially those about passing while you're on the course. And I am really pleased that later on in our discussion, we're going to have Coach Yaz Farouk with the University of Washington, who is going to come on and help understand even more about passing and yielding when we get to that spot. So we'll look forward to that. So initially, we're going to talk about launching. Launching at Conybeare is this one. So there's not going to be any boats allowed to launch anywhere, hopefully, prior to 7:10 Sunday morning, unless otherwise authorized by a dock master. And the dock masters are going to be responsible for taking a look to make sure that people are appropriately dressed for the weather. If you're coming down in your short sleeve uni and we've got freezing weather for some reason and kind of a wind blowing, you will be encouraged to not put yourself in that situation from a first aid standpoint. And and also you cannot launch without a bow number, because that bow number is going to be your key to being monitored throughout the course, as well as being able to get a time both for the start and the finish. So make sure you have that. And then this goes on to explain, it talks about where you can stage your blades and oars on the dock. They want to make sure that people don't bring them down and lay them across the dock as somebody else is trying to cross on or launch on the other side of the dock. So these are the ones to pay particular attention to. You want to be able to arrive early enough at your launch site to be able to get into line, to be able to get out on the water and be able to get down to the warm-up area at least 10 minutes, if not more, before you're scheduled to have your race begin. So you want to be able to get down to your launch area. The request is going to be bow first. You don't want to have to launch stern first and then have to back yourself off of a dock and try to get yourself turned around. And safety checks will also be conducted at the docks. Next slide. So routinely, for both for sprint racing and specifically really for head racing, because more of a chance for boats to have some kind of a collision or bump into each other. We'll be looking at bow balls, and we're getting toward the end of the season, and so make sure that you check your bow ball before you ever get down to the dock. It's critical. Um, we're not going to show any of the difficult slides that happen when bow balls fail, and it's just nothing but a pointy piece of fiberglass that can just knife through the boat that might be hit. So you want to make sure that your bow ball is in shape, and they're going to check to see whether it's supple and that it's attached firmly. Next. And also the footgear. This is the same thing that we're checking for in sprint racing to make sure that you have your tie downs on your heel ties and that you have the ability to escape the boat if for some reason it flips. I don't want to have to tell you the kind of stories. If the heel ties are not tied, you may be able to lift them up great for racing, but you could get trapped in a boat that's flipped, and we don't want that to happen. So those will also be checked. Next. At Conabear, they have a hot seat procedure. So if you're going to be hot seating a boat or hot seating rowers, they have a system where you're going to pick up a red hot seat card from the dock master the first time that you go out, so that when you return, that you can display that red card, and if practical, then they'll be able to handle you to give you priority to get your boat turned around and your rowers switched and to get you back out. This is one of those things where we're basically saying, don't just do it. Don't get out on the water and go, oh, darn, and then expect to have any kind of communication ability or treatment if you're not going to be with the system. So for Conabear, in any event, it will be a red card situation for hot seating. Next. So now we're going to talk about getting to the warm-up area from Conabear if you're launching from the University of Washington to get out to the start line, or because the finish line is going to be right in front of Conabear, being able to get back to your boathouse after you have finished the race. Next. So here's the warm-up going through the Montlake Cut. So you're going to come out of Conabear and you're going to make that turn, stay fairly close to the shore, not and you're going to turn in order to be able to get into the cut, to be able to go out to Portage Bay and on into Lake Union. There is, and we'll have a slide a little bit later on where we talk about the penalties, but it is single file going through the cut. There is no passing. And any buoys that are race buoys are going to be orange, and you want to be able to keep those on your port side because crossing over the race buoys is dangerous for you and for whoever is coming. So here's a look at how the bridge, so you want to stay over toward the shore, over toward the cement embankment. Don't get too close, obviously, but you want to be snug there because there will be eventually crews in the racing lane that are able to pass in the racing lane, and you don't want to be too close to the racing buoys. Next. So coming out of the cut, you're going to be going through Portage Bay. And if you have looked at, and I would encourage you to look at the map that's also posted on the website or on Regatta Central, you're going to come out into Portage Bay and then continue toward the University Bridge. And so you want to be able to stay single file as you get to that bridge. If there's some passing in Portage Bay, you're also going to have to be careful because coming back to the bridge, you need to be in single file again. And it's another one where there is no passing as you go under the bridge make the turn at Pocock and continue on out into Lake Union. This one also has an arrow there, and Yaz can talk about this a little bit later on at the same time. If you are a boat that is returning to Pocock, there is a procedure where you will have a special marker on your bib to be able to identify yourselves. And for those boats, you will actually have permission to go through the same side as the racing lane and stick close to the bridge abutment. And we'll talk about that a little bit later, but this gives you a diagram. Remember that boats racing that are going to be coming at you at all times have the right of way. So you want to make sure that you're keeping eyes and ears out for just that. Next. So here's what I was talking about. Boats returning to Pocock on their bib, not on their bow card, but on the bib that's being worn, they will have a bright yellow circle. So if you're a guest launching from Pocock, you can request your stickers at your packet pickup. You place the dots on your bib, and then you'll be directed by either Coach Farouk or another coach from the university to be able to return by going next to the racing lane under the bridge abutment and to a special staging area to be able to cross back over to Pocock when Coach Callahan gives you permission to do so. That will be critical, and for your safety, you'll need to be careful. Next. So going back to the warm-up situation, as you go under the bridge, you want to make sure that you're single file heading into Lake Union, and you're going to keep going until you are all the way past the Scansonia Ferry, which is a picture of it right here. It'll be on your right. So the idea is to please not stop, because the warm-up lane, the travel lane, just isn't wide enough for you to decide that you need to stop and check your foot stretchers or, see how something's doing, because you're going to have a lot of boats that are going to be coming behind you. And you want to make sure that if you're going to have space, that you can move over to starboard, chances are, and after you get past the ferry, then the other boats can go past you. Next. So as you come around and you go past the ferry, then as you are rowing into Lake Union, you will have Gasworks Park will be on your starboard side. And you need to be able to come down past Gasworks Park and be able to get off to starboard and stay inside the red can to make a turn to go down, to be able to get down into the warm-up lane. So you want to travel between the green can and Gasworks Park. And this is the same green can, if any of you participated in Tale of the Lake, that as you came out from the south end of the lake and made the corner, you needed to keep that green can on your port side. It's located off the corner of Gasworks Park. So stay to the north of it in order to be able to avoid the other crews that are coming out of the canal. Next. All right, so getting into the warm-up area, and this is for the boats that are coming out of the canal, the ship canal. Next. Here we're back to a section of the map that shows those that are coming from Lake Washington Rowing Club. Also, Lake Union Rowing is there. You're going to be coming out, and as you come into Lake Union, you're going to be heading down and drop down to get into the oval, the warm-up oval that will allow you to get yourself eventually, when called, out into the start chute to line up for when your race is is available. So it says don't be late. Cutting in, I think we have another slide, but cutting in is at the discretion of the warm-up wrangler, and there will be two warm-up wranglers that are there managing the oval and the warm-up. There will be another warm-up wrangler that is closer to Gasworks Park. There's a green that's closer to where the green can is a little bit. Because if there were ever any cutting over, if you think, and I think there's another slide that we'll talk about, but if you think you're going to be late for your race, you can't just cut over at the green can in order to be able to go get in the staging lineup. You need to talk to the wrangler that is going to be located there and get permission to be able to do so. They have the final say for the way the boats are handled in the warm-up area. So approaching the warm-up area from College Club. So College Club is actually next. College Club is actually where the finish is. I mean, where the start is. You can see it up there in the kind of the top of the map that's here in the cutout. So if you're launching or going back to College Club, you will have somebody on the other side that's in the travel lane or next to the travel lane where that will control whether or not you are allowed to cross from the docks at College Club or whether you're allowed to return to the docks at College Club. And there will be folks at College Club to let you know. The preferred method is to row straight across. Once you've given permission, that's the shortest and quickest. And you're going to be allowed to go either between races or between real gaps in a race that may be starting. So you have to pay quick attention. And if you decide to go in an angle, the more of an angle that you're going to take is going to take more time and be less safe for both you and the people that are coming to the start or that are coming down the travel lane. Next. So again, here's the warm-up oval. And there are 4 big yellow buoys and 2 small speed buoys. You're going to be going counterclockwise. Now, for those of you who don't remember digital or analog clocks, you're going to keep those buoys on your port side. And there's enough room that you don't need to pick your way around the end and slow everybody up. You should be able to make wide turns and be able to keep moving in an oval and then keep caution. The wranglers will have you be looking out for those that are coming into the oval from the travel lane or coming in to the oval from the ship canal. So you just have to pay attention to what they're going to be asking you. And then eventually they will be announcing your ability to come into the startup chute and the staging area. Next. I guess I should also this is the reminder I think I just talked about. We need to head to the staging area as soon as they enter the warm-up oval. You have to talk to the wrangler in order to be able to get permission. And you should stop by the Marshall launch that's up there at the top and talk to them about the status, whether you're late, whether or not you may even have missed your race, and see what can be arranged. So essentially, just remember that you need to be able to follow the pattern, and if you're going to be trying to step out of that pattern, talk to a wrangler. Next. So here are just some distances from the start line for the 4,800 meter course. How far it is to get to Pocock, it's just 500 meters approximately. And there's a timing station at the opening of the Montlake Cut because there are some various timing stations that will keep track of you as you go. And there's a timing station at Fox Point. I did the math and I think it comes out to 2.983 miles. So you could essentially say it's a 3-mile course um, once you've started your race. Next. So the starting procedure is when you are called up, they're going to be asking you to get into one of two columns. There's going to be a column or a single file of the even numbers, which will be next to the shore on your starboard. And then the odd numbers will be on port. So you also, when you're in the warm-up area, should be looking for boats in your same event and matching your number sequence. There may be an odd number here and there, but the whole point is that the boats that are in your event are going to be numbered sequentially, and you're going to try to get yourself into line on the even or the odd side, very close to where you should be in the numbering sequence. So you will be called to the start gathering, and you can see there are two arrows here, which is a gather. And then you will be sent up to the start marshal, who will then basically, you will come up to a next spot where they will release one boat at a time to head to the start, and you will be released approximately 15 seconds apart to go and build up or increase your speed to get up to the start line. So the rules of racing essentially are being set here by the LOC. And we talked about the fact that it's a 4.8K race. It's just about 3 miles, and it has, as you get out through Portage Bay and through the Motley Cut and out into Union Bay, which is the last big body of water, there will be a big wide buoyed turn. As you make that turn, everybody has to keep rowing. You cannot stop. You cannot hold down while making a turn. If you hold down, you will be excluded. Now, essentially, the referees that are out there will be looking to see for the reason that you might have stopped or held down. And if it was to be able to avoid colliding with another crew, that's going to mitigate giving you a penalty. The fact that you had to slow down for another crew to avoid a collision or something is enough of a penalty in and of itself. The buoys that mark the course, again, are orange buoys. They're going to be on your port side. And if you miss a buoy, and we'll go through some penalties a little bit later on, but missing a buoy, kind of not paying attention where you're going and maybe going into the travel lane by mistake, for every buoy you miss, it's a 10-second penalty. And if you show a blatant disregard for the safety of either the rowers, the rowers in your boat, or other rowers on the course, you can be disqualified from the regatta, which is a pretty stringent penalty. And we have not really had to have to give anybody that one, and we certainly don't plan on doing it here. Fours, eights, and coxed quads must have the coxswain on board during the entire race. So one of the penalties is if your coxswain for some reason fell out of the boat, which would be interesting, but you cannot continue just because you think you know how to get there. You have to have the coxswain there during the entire race. And good sportsmanship is just simply an expectation. And we look forward to working with everybody and expect everybody to be courteous, competitive, but courteous. Next. So we're going to talk about passing at this point. And this is really one of the situations where I'm going to introduce Yaz. She had wanted to be involved in our discussions about passing. So, Yaz, are you unmuted?
Yeah, I am. Can you hear me
There,
okay?
there she is, and we can see you as well.
Great.
Um, if you want to take this on, uh, at this point, that would be just great. If you want me to go through a couple of highlights and then turn it over,
Oh, I can do this part. Glad
you
to.
do this part.
Okay. All right. I asked you, hey everybody, welcome. Super excited about Sunday. It's going to be a lot of fun. I've raced this as a coxswain myself, and I'm fresh off the head of the Charles, as I imagine a bunch of you are. And I asked Dee if I could say a few words on this um, in this meeting because I noticed that there is a growing trend at the head of the Charles of people not yielding. And when that happens, it really wrecks it for everybody. So I'll just go down the slide, Dee, that you've laid out so beautifully, and I'll mention a couple of strategies that I think that you guys can implement that would be helpful to you if you're in a situation where you're passing or being passed. Okay, so just going down your points on the slide. The overtaking crew may choose which side to pass on. Okay, so if I'm an overtaking crew, what I would always try to do is point my bow ball where I want to go. Okay, so if I want to go on the inside of the turn, if I point my bow ball there, then I'm making it really obvious to the boat that I'm moving on that I'm coming up. In that time, if you're the boat that's being passed, if they're within a length of open water, you should be moving over. Okay, and then you've got to, yeah, I would say also if I'm in the passing boat, I would yell over and say, I'm passing on your starboard side, especially if you're in a boat that might be novices. People can sometimes panic. Okay. So here it says if a pass is attempted and there's neither room nor time to pass, then the overtaking boat must delay passing. Definitely been in the situation. You can throw in a couple of pauses. You can do something like that until you get a clean shot and then go. Almost any time if there are blades clashing, that's going to slow down everybody. So taking a stroke or two to pause, which I just did at the head of the Charles, was worth it. Nobody got hurt. We didn't lose that much time and it worked out great. If passing next to the warm-up lanes, you may not cross the buoy line into the warm-up lanes during any part of the race. Okay, that's pretty obvious. If you force the boat you're passing into or across the buoy line, the passer may be excluded. So you've got to have enough room to be able to do it. That said, um, this happened to me at the Charles as well, and we ended up clashing some blades because I was not willing to cross into the travel lane for the safety of my team. So that's the kind of thing where an official could award the penalty to the passing boat because they didn't leave enough room. The passer must allow time for the boat that they are overtaking to safely yield. Straightforward. If the passing crew does not yield when safety is a factor, and if they cause a collision or injury to another rower during the process, a penalty or exclusion will be assessed. I think that's pretty straightforward as well. One thing you mentioned, Dee, and maybe this is on an upcoming slide, but on a turn like the Pocock turn, if something were to happen and some boats collided and you're coming up behind them and there isn't room to pass the boats that are all blocking the turn, you have to stop because if you can safely get around them, do it. It may be a longer path, but you want to try not to pile, they call it piling on. If you pile on to a collision, the penalty's on you. So try to get it around if you can. But if the only path is through the boats that are stopped and you can't do it cleanly, then you've piled on, and that could be a penalty as well.
Let's
Okay.
go next slide
Yep.
and see
Go
what
ahead,
else
D.
it
Yeah.
says.
Do you want me to keep going, D, or you want to take it back?
Yeah, no,
Okay. All
you
right.
can keep going. I just want to take a look at what the next slide is so that we can see if it
Sure.
contributes to the ongoing discussion.
Okay.
Jean, can we have that slide?
Yep, I can see it. Yep.
Oh, okay, well,
Okay.
that's the
Yep,
finish
there you
line.
go. So the crew being passed must yield the line taken by the passing crew as quickly as possible. If the passing crew chooses to pass you on the outside, That's fine. I'm just saying that as a coxswain, and when you're in the race, if you are passing, make it obvious. You can use your bow person to reinforce. They can call as they're coming closer in case they can't hear you from the coxswain seat. Yep, here you've got it within a length of open water. You've got to yield and move over, give them a clear path. Try not leave enough room so you're not hitting blades, and everyone's going to get a faster time. The goal is always to have the fastest time that you can get. Be alert to possible upcoming passing attempts. Be prepared to decrease speed to allow the passer to pass safely and without interference. This is where your stroke person, if they see someone coming, they can signal to you and say, hey, someone's coming up on our port or starboard side. If you're in a bow loader, the bow seat, you should tell them before you launch for the race that they are your eyes, and ask your bow seat to tell you if anybody is coming up on you and which side they're coming. There it is. Yep, you've got it. I think that was it.
Okay, if there are any questions with regard, you guys can put it in. It looks like we have one in the chat.
Yeah, I've been monitoring the chat and then answering the
Okay.
questions that I can as they come in. I'll alert you if there's a question I can't answer.
I just want to say thanks, Dee, for letting me jump on and talk about that because, especially having just been in the situation, I think we want the racing to be safe, and obviously everyone wants to get the fastest time. But if you're in a situation where you have to yield, it's just do it. It happens pretty quickly, and then you can carry on. And the fewer blade clashes we have, and obviously the fewer, we don't want any hull to hull contact, and that's going to make for everyone having a race that you can feel good about at the end of the day. Thank you.
Thanks, Yasmin. We appreciate you helping out and participating.
Glad to.
We'll talk a little bit more about a couple of other things. One of the things that you do have to remember is everybody is trying for the most expedient course to be able to get through. But again, we go back to being competitive, but courteous. And so you don't want to cause yourself to be excluded.
And Dee, we do have a couple questions in the chat that did pop in.
Okay.
The first one is, what if you can't get past the collision?
Go ahead, Yasmin.
You're on mute, Yasmin. You're still on mute.
You're still on mute. I think I can.
There, now I can do it.
There we go.
Yep. Okay, cool. Yeah, that's unfortunate. And I've been in that situation. Going through one of the bridges at the Charles, there were literally 5 boats going through the same arch, and you just have to stop. And then it'll clear. When it clears and you've got a clear path, then you can go through. So, fortunately, the bridge arches here aren't that tight. You can have that kind of situation happen at the Pocock turn. But if you can weave your way through it, do it. But just if it is completely blocked or there's no way around, you've got to paddle and stop, because otherwise that's just going to make it worse.
And the next question is, are there any no passing zones during the race? And yes, there are.
Yes, there are. We'll go, we've got actual diagrams of those as we get there. And then also, I think there's probably going to be a couple of spots where Yaz can make some comments as well when we're talking about going through the cut. So hang on. The finish line is located, I don't know that you're going to measure it, at 750 meters in front of the opening of the Conibear Shell House. It's after the great big turn. And there's an actual big dock, and it even has a roof on it, and it will have 2 yellow buoys in front of it so that you can see where you should be heading in order to get your time and to make it to the finish. As you go past the finish, there should be a horn that will sound that will let you know. One of the things you need to do, because there's a pretty decent straightaway before you get to the finish and you'll be picking up speed, is continue past the finish to be able to get away from other boats that are behind you so that you don't all of a sudden just go, oh, this is wonderful, we made it, and then have somebody come roaring past and clashing of blades. And so we want you to be able to move away from the finish line before you finally take that and then you're going to be starting to make a curve to be able to head back either to Conybear if you're from there, or to be able to go back into the travel lane to return to where you launched from. Next
Indeed,
slide.
we had a question in the chat about finishing between the two buoys at the finish line and whether you needed to do that.
You know, that's a question that comes up often. We're not going to penalize you for not finishing inside the two buoys. The concern that we have, and we're going to talk about it a little bit later, is that last year we had to be particularly concerned because we're going to talk about the mud islands that are out in Union Bay. And so at the time that we are gathering to be able to start the race on Sunday, there will be information passed to everybody about whether or not there is a concern for mud islands as a hazard, and we'll kind of talk about them a little bit later in the slide. But if you should happen to just be headed and you wind up rowing outside that orange buoy, they're still going to get a time for you. It's not like a marathon where you have an electronic timer on your bow or anything and they won't read it. So the answer is no. You won't be penalized for finishing outside the two. It's just safer to make it there if you can. Next slide. Okay, we're going to talk about some of the hazards. We've talked about passing and yielding, and so, but we have a few. This is a typical head race course where we have a few hazards you have to avoid, especially if you want your boat to stay in one piece, and a few curves that we have to go around. So one of them, the first one that you encounter, is the red can. Now it's a red channel buoy. It's actually professionally referred to as a red nun, that is just before the Pocock turn. And this is a picture of it. It's on the right-hand side, the starboard side of your boat as you go underneath the bridge. There will be a string of yellow buoys that will be coming from the start that you will need to keep to starboard. And those will help you be able to stay far enough around the turn that you don't go into the red can. You will be able to see and think that it will be, oh, so much quicker and expeditious, and I can do a straighter line if I just cut between the can and the shore. And if you do that, you're going to get a 60-second penalty. Last year, 40% of our penalties that we had were because people decided that that was the straightest line was the one they were going to follow, and they wound up getting penalized for it between the red can by going between the red can and the shore. The other danger in doing that is that you wind up potentially colliding with those crews from Pocock that are going to be crossing and or returning. So this very first one is one to avoid. Keep the yellow buoys to starboard, stay wide, and you will see that big red buoy, and just make sure it stays on your starboard sides. There's no point in starting the race with a penalty right off the bat. Next. In Portage Bay, which is the one right under the bridge, you can see the arrow line, which is the race line, and the yellow line is the returning travel lane. There is a sequence of orange buoys, which you again, we've talked about it, need to keep to port. And this is one where, since you're sitting so low, coxswains and those in blind boats, it's really easy for some reason in this particular straight stretch to miss the buoys. 10 seconds per buoy in trying to get yourself down to the Montlake cut. So just make sure that you don't lose sight of the buoys and you keep them. As you come out of that turn, make your turn complete as opposed and straighten out so that you're not pointing toward the shore and inadvertently miss a buoy. Next. This one is an interesting one and a tricky one as you are coming into the Montlake Cut in the race lane. The cut itself looks very wide, and then it takes this jog and narrows itself down. So this is on the south side, on the Seattle Yacht Club side of the cut, and the walkway just gets jutted out to be narrow now down going underneath the bridge. So you need to pay particular attention to the fact that when you make that corner, you don't have as much width as you perceive that you do. And just make sure you watch out for that. And then you can proceed underneath the cut and out into Lake Union. Next. Exiting the cut, once you get through the cut and are coming out the other side, in front of you you will see two, we'll call them cans again, channel buoys. There is a red channel buoy which will be on your starboard side. Keep it on your starboard side. You don't want to, these are very heavy metal buoys. These are not, hello, I bumped a buoy, I'm going to bounce back. There is severe damage involved based on, tripping into these things. There is also on the buoys for the marking the course are still the orange buoys that you need to keep on your port side. And over on the other side, you can see there is also a green can that's right across from where the red circle is. And for some reason, some boats tended to go there. So just make sure that you keep those orange buoys to port and that you watch out for the red can or the red buoy, channel buoy, as you come out of the Montlake Cut on the straightaway before you start to make your big turn. Next. We cannot control marine traffic for any of our regattas. Tonnage rules and marine traffic has the right of way. We have had in the past had a barge go through. They're actually very accommodating and they get through as quickly as they can. We're hopeful in looking ahead for this year that any barge that is scheduled to kind of come into the water is going to not affect us until after we are done racing. But I guess there's every chance that it's possible. And when those things happen, we will let everybody know. There may have to be some kind of a delay to either the start of your race, or we'll try to make sure that we figure it out. Also, since boating traffic has the right of way, we do have yachts that will come sometimes from through Union Bay down through the cut and to go back to moorage in Lake Union or Portage Bay and the reverse. We may have some vessels that decide that they want to go out into Lake Washington. And so the referees and the marshals along the course will keep everybody informed about what's going on, and also we try to work with the vessels. They've been very cooperative, but we just want you to know there is nothing we can do about it. One of the years, and this was quite a few years ago, I remember coming through the Montlake Cut and we were following a boat called the Martini Lounge. And it was a diesel. And we kept going slower and slower so that we could continue to breathe. Okay, next slide. Out in Union Bay, this is one that is looking at one of those mud islands. And these are floating islands of mud with, they do have some vegetation on top of them. And as I understand it, this time of year, there are some gases that get released from the bottom of Lake Washington, that when they bubble up, it causes these mud islands to get released. And so these will be surveyed. There are a few out there now that they have picked up, but they're small and they're not affecting our race course. Last year we had one that was of considerable size, and we had to make sure that rowers understood and that athletes understood which way they needed to make sure they utilized the race course. So we'll be on top of this, and you will be advised if we have a concern for the mud islands. There's not much you can do about them, but we want to make sure you don't wind up heading onto one, because there you are sitting stuck on the mud, and it's really not a very happy place to be. Next, we're going to talk a little bit about penalties. And you have in your handbook that is available to you on the website for Head of the Lake for 2025. But this is the penalty list that we're going to be using as marshals and referees in the event that we think that you have missed a buoy. The red can coming around from Pocock will be a traffic pattern violation. Any of the penalties that also involve a collision are going to wind up being an exclusion. But I want to make a comment here that this is head racing. It is competitive. We understand that there may be clashing of oars. But we're looking to make sure that there isn't intent to harm or get in the way of somebody, that it isn't technically interference. Earlier when Yaz was talking, and if she wants to comment again, for passing, usually a failure to yield is a penalty that is applied to the boat that is being passed, because your job is to make sure that if you have an opportunity to yield and you've been notified, that you don't just say, oh no, I'm going to make that turn anyway, and I'm not going to yield right now, then that's going to be a failure to yield penalty on a passee. The passer usually winds up with potentially a penalty for possibly interference if they purposely try to cut back in such a way that they interfere with the boat just being passed's ability to continue their race, or deliberately cut them off. So that would be interference. Otherwise, there also may be an unsafe passing situation where the passing occurred and it was unsafe for one or the other of the boats to cause the other one not to slow down or something of that nature. So those are going to probably be some of the penalties. Missed buoys. So pay attention. And I think the passing is probably the most critical to be able to make sure that if you're involved in it, that you do the right thing.
Yeah, Dee, one thing
Next.
you just said, and I didn't address it, is if you're making a pass, you've got to complete the pass before you cut back in. And typically you'd want to be, at least a half a length of open water past the boat before you cut in. But it did happen to me at this race course where a boat just ran out of gas in the middle of a pass, and then they didn't complete the pass. And if you can't complete the pass, then you have to fall back in behind the other boat, but you cannot impede them.
Well said. Next slide. Okay, so some of the penalties to pay attention to when we were talking about no passing zone. In the warm-up, cool-down travel lane, which is on the other side of Pocock, going under the bridge, we talked about this, you have to stay in single file, and there is no passing on the warm-up lane. There is, if you think you can do it safely, there is passing, and you've started at a clip to be able to go around in the racing lane around Pocock. There is sufficient room. Make sure that you don't force anybody like into that red buoy, or that you force them into the travel lane or a bridge abutment, but there is passing allowed there, but not in the travel lane that is coming from Portage Bay into Lake Union. Next. There is also no passing in the travel lane, the warm-up, cool-down lane, through the Montlake Cut. And understandably, there are some very competitive teams, mostly on the collegiate side, that may or may not want to get a little bit aggressive in order to get going through there. But caution that it is single file, and there will be a monitor that will be looking at that point to be able to make sure that boats stay single file there. On the racing lane side, again, there is passing allowed. So it's one of the reasons why, if you are in the travel lane, you want to make sure that you stay away from the race markers through the course, the orange buoys, and keep an eye out for people who may aggressively be trying to pass in the race lane. Next. And if you lose a rower, stay with them. If you basically say, oh, well, we didn't need Joe to stroke anyway, you're going to get excluded. So that's just one of the penalties to think about. And the fact that we said the coxswain had to be in the boat at all times. Next. So safe passing is allowed. And these are, again, just a mention of the penalties that can be assessed for failure to yield with contact, interference with contact, an unsafe pass, and an unsafe pass with contact. So make sure that you understand those and that you're just overcautious. There's a question. I can see it came up. Mike, do you see if I can?
I've been monitoring most of them. I don't see a new one. I've been sort of answering them as they come in directly. There was, let's see. The last question was, if you miss your start of your race and you're not allowed to race and you need to row back to Conibear, what is the process for that?
We haven't, to be honest, we'd have to figure it out at the moment. We probably would, since the start is at College Club, if there's a reason that we couldn't somehow figure out another way to have you be able to race. I know that if you miss your event, it does say the penalty is exclusion, but it doesn't mean that we aren't going to figure out a way, if possible, to put you into another event where you don't impair anyone in that event's ability to do a fair race, but you would be able to complete your race. and your bow number would basically be included or be registered for the event that you should have been in, and we would notify timing that that was going on. But I think what would happen in the severest of that would be that we would have you send down to the college club, and then we'd figure out a way to be able to see if a time that you could start a row back if that were what was going on. One of the other things that, let's see, what's my next slide? Just so I know. Oh, yeah. So let's not have any of this. And by the way, if you go on to row 2K, they have some excellent, if they're still there, they had some excellent pictures of some of the collisions and the difficulty at Head of the Charles that was interesting to watch. And you can see how it starts to happen if you can get one of the ones that's several minutes on the turn, the big turn in front of Cambridge. The one time I had the opportunity to referee there, you can just see it going to happen, and it's going to happen. Basically, somebody cuts it and cuts too close. The penalty, there is a procedure this year, which is brand new, and so it is a fact, and it's in the handbook. And if the referee is making a judgment call with regard to the penalty, we've been through discussions about being pretty certain about what we see and how it happened, etc. And it's considered a finding of fact. But we have created the ability, if there is someone who gets back, takes a look at the results and see that they have a penalty and they have a concern about it, that you can make an inquiry. And it's a Google Doc. The link to get there is here. And so it can be completed. It asks for the information, the contact information, where it occurred, and what the reasoning is for making the inquiry. And it is also on that same form. And that goes to the timing center. And if you want to have a callback, and you put that information on there, one of the timing coordinator referees will give you a call and talk to you about it. Also, if you think that it is totally wrong and you really want to do a protest, you would use the same form, check that you were filing a formal protest, and then we realized that the logistics of getting to the Rose Room to be able to submit something within an hour of when your race is concluded, you have to, the ability here is there is a link on this slide to be able to submit the $50 online. And the referees, again, will then undertake to see about getting a protest procedure. The protest is something that may be difficult to resolve in a very quick fashion because I would need to get involved as the chief referee, and there are two referees that are there in the timing room, and there would need to be some inquiries made and discussions with the referee or race official that made the call. So you need to be very serious about whether or not you want to file a formal protest, but we certainly have the ability to face inquiries about the penalties. And if with the information that's provided, the referees can make a decision in the timing room that they will have the penalty removed. So
Dee, we've got a couple more questions from the chat.
Okay.
If I can ask those. The first one is just to clarify, it's safe. Is it safe to pass on the warm-up in areas except for around the Montlake cut and the Pocock turn? So can you pass on the warm-up in other areas?
The no, I mean, yes, the warm-up area through the Montlake Cut is restricted. Then once you get through that and into Portage Bay, you may pass, but you need to make sure that you are able safely to complete your pass, because it narrows down one more time before you get to the bridge into a single lane do not pass until you get past the Scansonia Ferry. So those are the two areas. But in between that, the answer is yes. You can pass in Portage Bay. You can on your way to warm up, once you get past the Scansonia Ferry, you can pass another boat. On your way to even get to the warm-up lane, you're not restricted there, the warm-up oval. And once and really that's it. So once you've started the race, you can pass safely based on your judgment around the Pocock Turn, through Portage Bay, and through the Montlake Cut, and all the way out. So the warm-up is restricted, but the racing lanes are not.
And then one more question on, is there a penalty for coxswain profanity?
That one's an interesting one, because we do hear coxswains talking to their boats. It depends on, to be perfectly honest, it depends on who the profanity is aimed at. If, for example, the coxswain is swearing at a boat that's about to pass them and is trying to do something to discourage them, etc., if it's aimed at another boat, so the answer is yes. You could be penalized for unsportsmanlike conduct. But if it's a single boat on its own and they're out yelling at their own crew, we discourage the use of that at all times. But, we understand that sometimes words come flying out in trying to make a crew compete a little bit faster. Does that help? All right.
Thanks, Steve.
Next slide. If we have on-water emergencies, there is a situation that if somebody flips in the middle of the course, there's going to be a launch that's going to respond immediately and figure out how to be able to handle the situation, whether it's a blind boat or a big boat or whatever has happened, or if there's even a collision. So the referee will be able to, if you're going to be directed around it, there is some flagging that can happen. The referee may have a white flag, and basically be trying to help rowers that are coming down or boats that are coming down to avoid, if they can't get it cleared right away, to try to assist in telling you which way that you ought to go. If you see a red flag for some reason, just like in any other race situation, they're asking you to stop. And then you'll be provided further instruction about what they want you to do. If you do flip and or are ejected from a boat and want to continue racing, you have the ability to get back in the shell and continue rowing. We talked about the fact that if somebody gets ejected, etc., that your crew has to remain there with you and they can't go off and leave you. If for some reason there is a reason that you cannot complete the race. Last year we had a couple of junior girls who had some difficulty with their boat and they just didn't feel like they wanted to be able to compete. They were novices. They hadn't had a whole lot of experience yet. And they came into, we wound up asking them to come into Conibear, and they basically were there, and we had the same kind of challenge in trying to see how we were going to get them back to their either their launch site, which I think was Conibear. Part of the challenge at that point was that they didn't know, they didn't have a phone number to be able to reach a coach. And it turned out we had this communication situation where the coach was trying to find them because they didn't finish the race, etc. So make sure that if for some reason you're not able to complete the race, that you at least have in mind um, getting to a boathouse or something that they can then contact the main center and have them try to locate your coach to figure out how we get people taken care of. If it's a freezing situation or an emergency situation, most of the boathouses all have the ability to have a warm room, blankets, hot beverages. So there is first aid available. If we have a situation where we have weather emergencies, if all of a sudden we had a storm come in and people had to vacate, we do have the ability to vacate folks off to all of the various rowing clubs. They're all available. They all have emergency. But this is asking that for some boat that maybe you consider carrying a cell phone in a waterproof bag if there's an emergency for contacting a coach. But that's up to you if something should happen and you want to be able to contact them through the launch. If you're in a launch and maybe they're taking you back to a boathouse that isn't from where you were launched from. Next slide. Here it's talking about bad weather. If there were something that came up, we would be instructing crews to be able to get off the water as quickly as possible and to go to the closest boathouse. Also, if we wind up with, say, difficult weather out in Union Bay, but the rest of the course is potentially rowable, we may go ahead and shorten the course. And I think there is a picture of maybe coming up of what the short course is, but once you get through the Montlake Cut and you're headed out on the straightaway before the big turn, there is Fox Point, and that's where the finish would be on the straightaway, so that it would shorten the course. And after that finish, you would immediately make a turn and head back toward either Conibear or back toward the Montlake Cut to return to where you were. Next slide. So they also, if we wind up with some difficult weather in Lake Union, we may shorten the oval or adjust it somehow so that the staging area moves up a little bit closer, and we move up a little bit closer to the start so that we don't have the athletes impacted. So that may happen too, but if any of that happens, either one, shorten course or shortening up or making adjustments to the warm-up area, you will be advised by the marshals and the monitors and the referees that are on the water to get that communication. Next. Here is that slide that shows where the short course is. Fox Point is just at the end of the straightaway from the racing out of the Montlake Cut. And then once you made it past the finish, you would make a sharper turn because you wouldn't be racing anymore, obviously, and be able to head back into the travel lane to be able to get back to your original launch point. Next slide. So in case of bad weather, how's anybody going to know? The race committee will basically have communication with the dock masters, with the launch sites, There is the WhatsApp that will be up to date on anything that is going on that is going to make a change. So you will know about it. In all cases, we're going to strive to make sure that we aren't going to make a decision and that affects you in the middle of your race. And next. So return your bow numbers when you get back to where you launched from. Make sure that you return your bow number to the dock master, or there's a box at the launch sites. That would be great. I know it's, you really want to pick your boat up and get back to the trailer and be able to go get your medals, etc. However, they really would like to have the bow numbers back. Next. The medals are going to be at the Conibear Boathouse. And then this is talking about the gold medals that are available for Masters events for fastest handicap time and raw time. It says adjusted for penalties, da-da-da-da. And silver medals, under the circumstances, they're awarded for the junior and under 17 events and collegiate open events with at least 10 entries. And that the medals are again at Conibear. And Batman says, be safe, have fun, and have a great regatta. Do we have any more questions about things? We did this in pretty good shape. And I think everybody, we are just really fortunate to have some better weather coming our way. And we just hope we've got 483 entries, I think, and 70 some clubs. And so we're just really looking forward to a great regatta and a safe regatta. And at any time when you're out on the water, if you have a question, you can ask a referee. They are available to answer whatever your problem may be and help you solve it.
We have one question that came up in the chat. Are there podium medals or only first place? So there are only first place medals. I can answer that question. And I don't see any other questions in the chat. I'll give it just a moment in case others want to sneak in here with a question.
Well,
Seeing
no,
none.
there are silver medals for the junior and under 17 events, and then if the collegiate or open events have at least 10 entries, those also receive silver medals. And then some of our races also have trophies and cups. So if you want to get your picture taken with the backdrop, you're welcome to do that, and with the trophies as well.
Thanks, Jean. I see no other questions coming in. So on behalf of the Lake Washington Rowing Club, wish you a very successful race and stay safe out there. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.